bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
This half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, a variety of insurance needs. They do a great job of taking care of each and every one of them. They do a great job of finding every way possible to save you money. That's because customer service means everything to them. They are the great people at Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. And boy, it is great to hear on the other end of the line, Donnie Collins. Donnie, how are you? There he is. Hi, Donnie.
Hey, Steve.
Great to hear you again. How's everything going?
Oh, that's not so bad. Baseball season's underway. I'm in my comfort zone now.
There you go. There you go. Get to watch all the prospects come through and all the rehab assignments come through, which sometimes is more exciting than the prospects.
Yeah, sometimes, especially up here, it's always you're always going to get a Yankee. So I think they were a little disappointed last week they didn't get Garrett Cole, but they got to see Volpe try to play short, so that was fun. Yeah,
exactly. All right, Penn State guys that you and I have watched over the years, they get drafted along the way. Was there any draft pick along the way that either surprised you or a draft pick along the way where you're like, oh, okay, it's interesting that he landed there?
Yeah, I think on I look at the order, I thought Drew Shelton went a lot higher than I thought he would. I almost had the order pegged, but I had Shelton going below Singleton. But I think that's really where I thought they went in the order I thought they would, except for Shelton. But a guy like that, it doesn't surprise me that he goes high. I mean, Caden Wallace a couple years ago, he went, I think, a lot higher than people thought. But you know, coaches love those guys. They're steady. They're almost anonymous out there. They don't make too many mistakes. They know their system well. They've had a lot of success, but they kind of just fly under the radar. And I think Shelton's one of those guys. Really love that pick for Dallas because I could see him being a guy who he's 33 and still in the league, kicking around, helping out a couple teams along the way. So I thought he was. If there's one guy who went in a spot that surprised me for among the Penn State guys, it was Drew Shelton. I thought he was. I thought him going in the fourth round was kind of surprising me, but you know it's strange because you look at it and there wasn't I didn't think that team would be on that player kind of thing. I mean, even Vega going in the first round, you kind of knew that there was one or two teams that would value him higher than others, and Baltimore was certainly one of those teams. I think Catron to the Commanders, I thought was a really great fit for him. So you look at and even the way Carolina plays for Zach Wheatley, I thought that was a really good landing spot for him, and even Drew Aller. The Steelers, physically, that's a guy that the Steelers always look at quarterback. I think the Roethlisberger comparisons over the years, at times during his college career, made that a pick that made sense too. So I'm really not surprised or shocked at any of the landing spots. I mean, I think just Shelton going a little higher than I thought. I had him as a fifth or sixth rounder, and he went in the fourth.
And one quick thing about Drew Aller for a moment. I think he has a chance, just my opinion, to be a better pro quarterback in a pro system as opposed to at times running the RPO. He didn't always run RPO here, but at times he ran RPO here. And I just feel like the pro system's a better fit for his skill set. Do you see it the same way?
100%. I thought that was a really shrewd pick by the Steelers, and look, that's going to draw a lot of attention. I mean, the Penn State quarterback going to play for the Steelers, and that's a guy who grew up near Cleveland going to play for the Steelers, right. All the same. But yeah, you look at it from an objective, if Drew Aller was a guy who played in Oklahoma, I think this would be viewed as a universally good gamble by the Steelers. It just the size of the guy. He's not going to wither in the cold once November, December hits. They like to throw the ball down the field a little bit. They're going to run the ball. Drew needs the play action game to really thrive. I think that's one thing that really didn't always take off at Penn State. That wasn't a consistent part of their game with Drew, the old traditional play action game. But yeah, hey, look, they have some big time deep receivers now. They have a quarterback who can come in and learn from a legend. Because I think we all believe Aaron Rodgers is coming back. I just think it's a perfect landing spot for him. I like the way Mike McCarthy has developed quarterbacks. And let's face it, I mean, Drew's skill set wasn't always the best fit in the Penn State offense. He was a big time quarterback prospect, and all that. And Penn State was lucky to have a guy like that come in. They needed a 5-star guy to kind of come in. You need that once every 5-10 years to kind of bring some attention to the position. But I didn't think his skills were always the best fit for Penn State's offense, and that's a legitimate criticism. But I certainly think he had a really good college career, and at times was one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten at the same time. So I think this is a really great gamble by the Steelers. And I hesitate to even call it a gamble because I think he's better than the young quarterbacks they have in there right now, skill-wise, size-wise, and every way. This is a guy that the new staff could really take hold of and make their own.
And with a third-round pick, that's not really a gamble. That's a third-round pick by the Steelers along the way with a guy with a big pro arm, pro size. And, last week we did talk with the Steelers. Rob King does their games. And he says, look, I don't have any inside info. He says, but I fully expect Rodgers to be back. And that's the scenario the Steelers need. They need to buy a year for whomever's going to be next to be behind him for a year and see how that guy goes about his business.
Yeah, and that's why this is that's why it's a good pick. I mean, but what Drew does well, you can't teach. Drew fires the ball better than any quarterback in the draft, bar none. I'll take him, his throwing arm over Mendoza's. I'll take him over Simpson. I'll take him over anybody. His size is prototypical. And what Drew doesn't do well, you can teach. I really believe the footwork inconsistencies could be. Once you're in a professional system, you're not worried about classes. You're not worried about this, that, or the other thing in college. This is your life all the time. And what I know about Drew, first guy in the building, last guy out, he cares. It makes sense if you're going to look at. Hey, we have a guy in Will Howard who's been in the system for a year, but he's not as toolsy as Drew. And here's Drew, a guy who hasn't played in the system as like Howard has. So I think you got two very different prospects there, and moving forward, you could pick one. And the other thing is, if you don't like either of them, you could take another one in the draft next year. There's no rule against it. So I just think that Drew has so much upside for the Steelers that it was a third round. Anybody who thought Aller was a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick wasn't paying any attention. I mean, he was. I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised he didn't go in the second, because I thought that enough teams would look at those skills and say, this is a guy who, 2 years ago, if he'd been able to come out and he might have been a top 15 pick after the 23 season.
Right. Yeah, because you mentioned Will Howard. What I said about Drew, RPO versus pro system, I feel like Will Howard's actually the guy that's the better RPO guy and is not as suited to the pro system. Drew's the other way around. So, I mean, I think that's why they are where they are.
I would totally agree with that. Howard is a fine quarterback. I don't think I ever watched him at Kansas State or Ohio State, even with all the weapons he had there. And certainly, I'm not knocking Howard. He was a winner at Ohio State, won the national championship quarterback, had a lot of weapons there. But he did his job. They gave him the keys to the Ferrari, and he didn't crash it. But he's a college quarterback, and Drew's a professional quarterback.
Yeah. Wenger Ioane, of course, ended up going to the Ravens. That really wasn't a surprise. A lot of people had him pegged going there anyway. But Denai Dennis Sutton ended up going to Green Bay. It may have been the fourth round, a little bit later than I thought he was going to go, Donnie. But I feel like based on need, I think the fit benefits Denai. What is your opinion?
Yeah, I like that pick for them. I mean, I think Rashawn Gary. I don't think they're a one-for-one swap, but I think there's an opportunity there for him. They needed some dynamic rushing off the edge to go on the opposite side of Micah. And yeah, I thought Denai was a little bit underrated in this draft the whole time. I wouldn't have been surprised if he went early third. And I think I was texting Rich Scarcella at the time. I'm like, it was in the third round. I'm like, surprised Denai's still sitting out there. And then his team ended up picking him. But yeah, it was you get to the fourth round and you're just waiting. There's a range there where he's got to go. And I thought the Packers were a really smart fit for him because I don't know why he fell. I think his numbers were really good, and I thought his production at Penn State was pretty consistent throughout. I mean, did he ever have that run that like Abdul Carter had? No, but he was there every in big spots. Denai was a guy that the opponents were focusing on, and he was a game wrecker at times on defense. So I really did like that landing spot for him with Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay knows edge rushers. And Gary's a good. He's a good guy to bring up here because I didn't think he was as dominant at Michigan as his star ranking or his reputation indicated he'd be, but he was a really good pro. And you look at the Allard thing with him, and I think Denai. You look at that. Your college to pros. I mean, there's some guys who are better suited to make that jump, and I think Denai, again, prototypical size, played top competition week in, week out at Penn State. I think he was a shrewd pick there too, and I think he's going to have a pretty good long career. He might have. You look back. I think he's the safest bet to have a long career out of all of these guys.
If you're around enough NFL people, and you and I have been around enough NFL people, you can kind of get a gauge as to how they think, just listening. So we know how productive Katron Allen was at Penn State, all-time leading rusher. We saw as last season went, which guy was getting the ball over and over again. Yet when it came to the draft, I firmly felt there was no doubt in my mind Nick Singleton would be picked before Katron Allen. Because, again, when you talk to enough NFL people, you figure out what they value. Now, not everybody has the same values, but what they value. How did you look at Singleton before Allen in this case?
I knew Singleton was going before Allen, and I think Allen's a better traditional running back than Nick. But in the NFL, you got to be able to move that running back around a little bit, have some versatility with them, maybe run him out of the slot, and I think Nick does that potentially better than Katron does. But I love the landing spot for both of those two guys. I don't know if Tennessee's got a much better second option than Singleton. Speed-wise, he's going to be impressive to them, and he can get to show all that obviously in the off season. But I thought at Penn State what they showed was Nick was the more versatile guy, and Katron was kind of the bell cow guy, and he was he's not explosive. So when that's the one thing I think NFL guys they kind of, if they're going to err, they're going to err on the side of who's more explosive. So Katron falling into round 6, I don't think it's a surprise, but I still think Washington got a really good back there. I heard one of the best, and I hate comparing guys like, he reminds me of this guy or whatever, because that's unfair to the guy who played 15 years as a pro and to the guy who's still in college. Right. But somebody compared Katron to Ernest Biner, and I thought that's absolutely that's absolutely what Katron reminds me of. Ernest Biner, he's reliable for a long time. You need 3 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. I think he's a very solid pick, but I think the higher upside guy is obviously Singleton with his speed, pass catching ability.
Right.
I think Penn State really started to play well last year once Terry Smith figured out how to get Singleton the ball in some different ways, and really those two were the offense last year as that season went on, and rightfully so.
No, Terry did a great job. Once he took over and said, "Who are the 2 best players on offense? Let's do it." I mean that's sometimes it's that simple, but Terry understood that it was that simple. And look, the one thing that that is important with Katron, I think his vision is invaluable. That's why his jump cut works so well, because he has a great jump cut, but he always jump cuts to the opening because he sees the opening, and that's what makes him, I think, a really good inside runner.
Yeah, he's to inside running what Dennis Rodman was to rebounding. He knew where the open spot was on the court, so he could tap the ball there. Katron never made the wrong cut. In 4 years, you always saw him make the right decision with that jump cut. But that was kind of the book on him coming out of IMG. I think was his vision was supreme, and we saw it over and over again. And now, does that translate to the NFL? I think it can. I think players like that have succeeded when you don't have the elite speed, the elite breakaway ability, when you're not necessarily a guy who, and although I think he could be a good receiver, where you haven't necessarily shown that you're a big contributor in that facet of the game in college. But I still think with that vision and that just feel for the position, I think that's kind of that's the way I look at it, the feel for the position. Katron has it like no other running back I've seen at Penn State, and they've had some great ones. But yeah, I think that plays in the NFL, and that keeps you around. And someone like him on third down, I think third and short, I think he's a guy you want on the field in an NFL situation. I don't care how fast the defenses are. I don't care how big and strong they are. Katron is a guy who finds a way.
I was asked today by somebody which undrafted free agent would have a real shot. And my answer was Tyler Jazansky with the Raiders as a long snapper. Does anybody fall into that category? And was Jazansky a fair enough answer?
Yeah, I was going to say Jazansky if you're going to ask me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is me being probably a homer, but I think Dom DeLuca has a chance somewhere just because he knows what he is. He's a special teams guy in the NFL. Yes. And he loves playing special teams. I like the fit with the Ravens. They value that kind of player. Maybe liked it a little more last year when their head coach was a special teams guy. But that's excuse me. That's something that you don't change your culture on. You're built on special teams. They've got some key special teamers from Penn State over the years. I think he's a guy who has a shot. But yeah, if you're asking me to bet my house on one of the undrafted guys making a team, I'd bet the house on Jazansky, because somebody's gonna want a long snapper that was consistently that good, and Chris Stoll doesn't hurt. To see him and kind of have the success he's had with Seattle. But I like Jazansky, and I think that's not only the fair answer but the correct one.
Yeah. And Don DeLuca, by the way, I mean, because he does so well on special teams, and he'll give them an extra positional guy, could be one of the guys that at minimum makes the 53. How about that? He'll be on a practice squad. There's no question.
Yeah.
And the question is whether he can then elevate from there. But and I thought Zane Durant landed in a good spot, considering last year the Bills were hurt when Ed Oliver was out. And so they need more depth there, too. So I thought that worked out for him.
I was going to say similar player to Ed Oliver.
Yeah, very much so. Always a pleasure, Donnie. It's great catching up with you. Thanks, as always.
Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for having me.
The great Donnie Collins on the show today. Half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. They do a great job of making sure, A, you're fully insured, B, saving you as much money as possible. Customer service means everything to them. They're great people who are great pros. Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour being brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, the basics that you need. Business, boat, motorcycle, RV. They take care of everything. They also do everything they can to save you money while making sure that you are fully insured, and they continue to track policies for you. Is your coverage up to date? Customer service means everything to them at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. The first question I did ask him when I set this up is, you don't have a tee time yet, do you? And he made sure there were parameters. Nate Bauer, welcome.
Oh, hello, Steve. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Are you actually on the golf course right now?
I'm off to the golf course. I'm a little. I got to be honest with you. The round went a little long, and I got some jitters joining you for the show. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but I just putted out on 18, and I'm in the car.
Well, I mean, I'd have given you another half hour. I don't care, an hour. I don't care.
I know, and I should have. I fell apart a little bit down the stretch, but that's okay. That's all right.
It's rare.
It's good to be with you.
It's rare for you. All right, so let's. Interesting times. It's a spring where twice the media had opportunity to see full practices. What were your general impressions of the full practices that you saw to at least give you a foundation for this football team as a reporter?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So one, and this is going to be, I'm telling on myself. I was at the Masters for the second one.
I forgot. You know what? I forgot about that. That's on me. I did forget. And believe me, right? I mean, you and Ron Moeller were both at the Masters, which just tells me it's the place to be.
I needed to have some priorities, and you never know when it's going to happen again. So unfortunately, the second window was not available to me. But what I will say is, look, and this is kind of a hard and fast and true thing for me. I don't care until I see what starters look like, and I think the word you used was a third of the team. That's probably maybe a slight exaggeration, but not by a lot. There's just a ton of guys at the top of the depth chart that until you see them play. And frankly, until you see them play against Big Ten competition, it's just really difficult to discern. I have never, and I'm interested to see how you feel about this, because I feel like it is, when I say this, it's perceived as negativity, And I actually think it's the opposite. I've never gone into a season at Penn State, right, watching Penn State, observing Penn State, where I felt like the variables between the ceiling and the floor were as wide as they are this year.
I think that's fair, but I think that's fair for almost everybody, because now what I'm saying and seeing is that because of the portal and so many teams dipping more and more extensively into it, it takes me about a month into the season, like the end of September, before I get a read as to who's actually good and who isn't. And the same thing in basketball. And I've used the Michigan-Indiana example a few times on the show on basketball. You could tell quickly Michigan was together and really good. I mean, they're blowing out Gonzaga by 40 and so forth. I mean, it's not exactly beating the CYO team. And then Indiana, Dick and I went, they did everything in the portal. 6 seniors, the whole deal. And Dick and I, after seeing them beat Penn State, and they beat them with complete ease. We're driving back to Indianapolis, and 2 of us looked at it and said, they're not very good. We just saw them in person. How can you say that after seeing that game? Easily. Like, a lot of the parts didn't fit. And I think with almost every team, and especially with this Penn State team, because half of it is new, we don't know yet how all the parts fit. So I think that's fair.
Yep. Yeah, and I think maybe there's even a little bit of recency bias for me, just in that, no season was more highly anticipated for Penn State in the last 15 than last year.
Yes.
And, bottom line is, some things didn't go their way, and some things fell apart, but also they got beat.
Yeah.
It wasn't this, like, everybody is getting better, parity is getting stronger. It's just tough. It's tougher to discern, and it's in a situation like this for Penn State, where you're asking and seeing so many of the top players, right? The anticipated top of the depth chart come from Iowa State, at least offensively.
Yes.
I don't know. Right? And like, Rocco Beck is at the heart of it. Is who is this guy? How good is he? How healthy will he be? We've seen what happens to players and the variables that can happen with guys coming off of injuries, right? Especially at the quarterback position. It is no telling. He could be very good, right? He could go back to 2024 form and be so comfortable with his receiving targets, which he's had time with. He spent time with them. He spent time with Carson Hansen. Maybe you put, his tight ends plus Andrew Rapley. Maybe you put those guys around him, and he just excels this season. Absolutely. Like, that's 100% a possibility. I just feel like it's also a possibility that it's a tall order coming off of 2 hurt shoulders, and being able to acclimate to all the change that's going on. It's just it is very intriguing, and it should have everybody at the edge of their seats watching this team this season.
Matt Campbell made his first appearance on the Coaches Show. He did not get a chance to do so during the basketball season at all. So his first appearance was this week. Was there a primary takeaway you had from it?
Yeah, I thought, look, he's going to be perfect for Penn State. I feel that wholeheartedly. He is right up the alley of, right, the blue blood, dyed in the wool, tried and true Penn State fans. I mean, it's just a seamless fit. His ease in answering questions, and the banter. There's just nothing fabricated about it. It's very authentic. I think that his pitch and I wrote about it yesterday, but it was kind of the first time that I had heard him more or less give a recruiting pitch, right? How does he sell Penn State? Your girl Murph with the question about what sticks with with the recruiting. Why is he having success recruiting? And he started with what, Steve? Education.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Like in an NIL world, it's harder and harder to distinguish yourself, I think, as a program, not just at Penn State, but anywhere, right? And not only is it harder to distinguish yourself, but it's harder for anybody in the space to make the distinctions matter. Right? Because at the end of the day, most of these kids and most of their families in the high school space, as well as in the portal, when they have an opportunity to climb, and they're the type of free agent that Penn State is going to want or that Penn State's competing for, it's hard to get it beyond the bottom line. And what does it cost? So the fact that he put that out there and was like, hey, world-class education, you're gonna, what was it that he said about, I hope you choose us for the hard days, right? Not for the rosiest picture and all of the hypotheticals that go well, because, everybody's going to sell you on that. And there's nothing wrong with people selling you on that. But there's also going to be some tough days. And it does not matter if you are, if your career fizzles and it doesn't work out, a Journey Brown, right? Yeah. Or it's the most successful, an Abdul Carter, a Micah Parsons. No matter who you are, you're going to go through it. You're going to have stuff that happens to you. And if you have confidence and belief and a trust factor, that interpersonal relationship with Campbell and the people, the men that he's surrounded himself and women on the staff, the nutrition staff, the strength staff, all of the people that make up Penn State football, then you have an opportunity to succeed and push through those. So I thought it was a very pertinent and a message that resonated pretty well, particularly as it comes to Penn State.
Right. Well, there's more to it than that. Every coach is a competitor, so every coach wants to win. I mean, if you discount coaches being competitors, I mean, you don't quite get what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. But I always tell everybody, 2 weeks into preseason camp, there is that come to Jesus moment where a whole bunch of players look around and they say to themselves, man, I better hit the books here pretty hard, right? Because look, you're seeing all the Ohio State guys get picked in the first round. Still, 97% of the Ohio State roster is not going to the NFL. Sorry, it's not. That means 97% of them need whatever degree they got from Ohio State. That's just the reality of the numbers that are available in the NFL. It's a numbers game. I mean, they only have X amount of spots, as opposed to college football, which has 136 teams and tons of spots. And so when he's talking about the education part of it, he's talking about, like, hey, we're going to do everything we can to make you the best football player possible, but getting this other piece of paper is also going to help you.
Yeah, it's all of it, right? I mean, I do think that he isn't putting it at the forefront, but he's also not shying away from Penn State wants to be competitive and will be competitive in the NIL space, right? They're gonna pay guys. They're gonna get market value. They don't want people who it's the only thing that they're about. But when you talk about, it's so funny when you talk about the NFL and, hey, 97% of Ohio State guys aren't going to make it, and the same can be said for Penn State, which,
exactly.
It's going to be 8 or 9 or maybe 10 guys that get to the NFL from Penn State this year, in this cycle. Well, the thing that gives me some level of satisfaction is the reality that most of the rest of the roster will have been compensated in ways that are meaningful now.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
For their lives. Whether they get a pro check or not, whether that ever happens, if it doesn't happen, they're going to leave Penn State with certainly, hopefully for them, a degree, but also hopefully a nest egg, right? Something that they can, like the amount of the American public that would do well and be well served to be able to buy a house and not have a mortgage getting out of college, Right? I mean, can you even imagine? It's such a foreign concept. It's such a head start for so many of these guys, and it's just such a benefit for these guys to now experience playing in this era of college football.
Tyler Warren ends up being a first-round NFL pick, but you know what he did with his NIL money? He invested it. Right? He was smart about it. That's what he did. Look, the average to be competitive on the NIL landscape, minimum $25 million, safely $30 million to put yourself in the race to be one of the 12 teams. So 25 minimum at least, and then $30 million on average. Basketball, the average last year in the Big Ten was 9. It's probably going to go up to 10 this year. You've looked at how the basketball team to this point has been constructed, heavy on shooters, and probably 2 more that they have to get. How tough a climb is it financially for them compared to what they're doing within their own conference with what other people do?
I hate to use the word impossible, but I think it's in that realm. I mean, look, I'm going to ballpark some numbers here for you. You can push back if you want, if you think it's right. 4-ish, 4.5 for last year's roster, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say lower.
Looking at 6.5-ish, maybe 7 for this year's roster.
Yeah.
If the market went up 65%, which is what some estimates have said, that the transfer market went up 65% from last cycle to this cycle. Yeah. That's tough. That is right, because that's about what that is. Yep. 4.5 to 6.5 is about. It's in that realm of 60-ish%. Yep. And I'm terrible at math, so if I'm wrong on that, just correct me.
You're okay.
But it's just if everybody else is going higher, even if Penn State goes higher and invests more fully, which is 100% my anticipation that they are doing. That is absolutely where they're at. It is not such a struggle. They're not competing in the same realm that they were with, kind of pushing all the chips in to the middle that football did last year. And so some sacrifices had to be made. At 6.5 against their 10, I think that the equation this year is, all right, can you get 7, 8 guys that can play?
Yes.
Right? Because you're not going to get 13. Just forget it.
That's right.
That's not going to happen. Forget 11. Can you get 8 legitimate basketball players? And I'm excluding the word college because in some respects, they're pulling in pros. Guys that have been playing professionally, internationally for years. And good on Mike for doing it, right? Yeah, because it's just, you're at the end of the road here in terms of what your options are. You have to be creative. You have to go outside the box. And I think in ways that didn't happen last year, you got to figure out how these guys fit together, right? What are the
It's like talking about the
identity. Like, who is this team going to be? What are the strengths going to be? 3-point shooting was such a weakness last year. Defense was such a weakness last year. I think that 3-point shooting is going to get better this year. I don't know about the defensive end of the floor. Right. I think there are still definitely some questions there. But also, as you just said, until the portal is resolved, until the international market is resolved, and I haven't done a ton of research in it, but this 5 years for 5, if that becomes real this cycle, all bets are off, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're saving a little bit of coin and a little bit of space to fill the rest of the roster with guys that could meaningfully impact the roster.
Well, and so just so everybody understands, when a player asks for approximately a third of your available money, and you know where I'm going with this, and I think I'm fair. I think I know what the numbers are, okay? You can't build a roster after that, because one thing they can do in the NBA, they have a cap and so forth, but they can fill rosters 10 through 17, 16 and 17 being two ways, with undrafted free agents and so forth, working with minimums and things like that. The NFL's the same way. You know, they could throw a lot of money into a quarterback, into a wide receiver like the Bengals do, and then they can fill out the rest of, like, the bottom half of the roster with the last 10 guys being undrafted free agents and still have 53 people. College basketball, you can't do that. You can't give a third of your money to one person because you don't have enough to fill the rest of the roster.
Totally. It's that, but it's also, if you look at the NFL, and look, like, full transparency, if you're not designing and like, this raises all kinds of questions about educational opportunities, right? Like, what is college athletics at this point? That's in its own bucket. We can have that conversation. But if the objective is to win, if the objective is how is your Penn State basketball team going to be competitive against the teams that it has to play in the Big Ten?
Yep.
Your options are you got to get guys that can play. And the number of people the number of programs that can afford to pay 10 players goes beyond Penn State.
Yes.
Right? Half the league, more than half the league, can have depth. They can spend money. It's almost like the quarterback conversation coming out of high school, right? These prep quarterbacks who, all right, if you have that money and you can afford to pay for a quarterback that you don't even intend to see the field their freshman year, fine. That's good. That's good for you. Penn State's not in that situation. And so I think that there is a recognition that's implicit from Mike of what the situation is. And that is, he can't be the developmental coach that he has always been. He has always been, and to great success, right? Like a strong, by the time you're a senior, by the time you're a junior, you will have had that time to marinate and be very good. That's gone. That's gone. He can't do it. They don't have the time. They don't have the luxury. They don't have the roster space, and they don't have the money, because by the time that you get to that point, by the time you are that good as a junior or a senior, Penn State will have spent the money to develop you, and somebody else will take you or take your players for more money than you can possibly afford to pay them.
Jermaine O'Neal in the NBA. Portland Adam, 4 years, went free agent, and ended up going to the Pacers, and that's when he became an All-Pro. All right, so what a great recovery off the golf course. I got to give you credit for that.
Hey, Amir, I'm just happy to have played. I'm
going out today. I'm doing a fitting for a driver.
I love it.
There you go. Hey, thanks so much, Nate. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great Nate Bauer, brought to you by Purdy Insurance here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.